Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the 2025-2026 Oncology Pharmacy Resident Clinical Pearl series. Today, I'll be presenting a recap of the drug repository program in the state of South Dakota and provide 2025 policy updates that have been made to this program to build upon the Clinical Pearl videos that have been made by our previous residents, Natalie and Michelle. For the objectives of this presentation, I will illustrate the value that drug repository programs can have in mitigating financial toxicities and reducing medication waste. Then I will go into more detail about the policies for the drug repository program in the state of South Dakota and the history of its inception, and then provide the updates to the drug repository policies. To illustrate the value that drug repository programs can have for our oncology patients, hospitals waste billions of dollars worth of unexpired medications every year, and the annual spending on these oral oncolytics is expected to increase every year through 2027. A study has shown that 48 out of 54 oral chemotherapy drugs exceeded $10,000 per fill for Medicare patients. So this is where drug repository programs can help play a role in which our patients who may have poor insurance coverage or no insurance at all can greatly benefit from receiving medications from this program. Lastly, there was also a review of federal bankruptcy records of more than 230,000 patients with cancer. This found that financial toxicity would be an independent risk factor for early mortality. With oral oncolytics, there are a variety of reasons for drug waste. An example of why this may occur was analyzed in a retrospective chart review of dispensing data from a 3-year period at Holden Comprehensive Cancer Specialty Pharmacy, in which reasons for drug waste ranged from disease progression, adverse events, death, and dose changes. Despite the fact that there is considerable drug waste in health institutions, most states have enacted operational drug repository programs as shown on this map. South Dakota is also one of these states that has an operational drug repository program. To go over the history of South Dakota's drug repository program, in 2019, Avera Specialty Pharmacy spoke to the State Board of Pharmacy to request initiation of a pilot program for donated medications. During this meeting, all the board members agreed that it would be a great program to start. 3 years later, House Bill 1086 was passed unanimously in the state legislature and then signed into law by the governor to establish the state repository program. On February 1st, 2024, the Board of Pharmacy then partnered with Optum Perks to officially launch the drug and medical supply redistribution program for the entire state. This partnership led to the implementation of an electronic database for providers, patients, and other pharmacies to search up medications that are available for redispensing. Currently, there are a number of pharmacies in South Dakota that participate in the drug repository program. They can be found in locations such as Sioux Falls, Pierre, Millbank, Webster, and Canton. Ever since Avera Specialty Pharmacy launched its pilot program in 2019, it had great results for eliminating drug waste and saving millions of dollars of prescription drugs that were donated from over 100 patients. In 2023, the program also redispensed 72 donated medications that are valued over $740,000, and this is the average wholesale price. Our current practice at Monument Health is to send any donations to Avera Specialty Pharmacy, where we can contact them at the phone number 605-322-8300 if assistance is needed for determining if a medication is appropriate for donations. To find forms and information regarding the South Dakota Drug Repository Program is located on the South Dakota Department of Health website as shown on this slide. To view specific donated medications and medical supplies that are available, you can click on the directory that was shown on the previous slide. This is very helpful for us at Myron Health because now an app is no longer needed to view this like it was back when Natalie made the Clinical Pearl video on this topic. For a pharmacy to participate in the drug repository program, it needs to fill out an application form, and this form looks like this. For a donor to donate a drug or medical supply to a participating pharmacy, the donor must sign a form shown on this slide to attest to the fact that the medication or medical supply was stored as recommended by the manufacturer and has not been tampered with. The donor must also acknowledge that he or she will not be reimbursed or otherwise seek financial compensation from the receiving pharmacy for the donation. Then the donor must fill out all other pertinent information regarding the specific medication or medical supply that is being donated. For the redispensing of donated drugs, there is a form that must be signed by the recipient and dispensing pharmacist. This form shows the pertinent information of the donated drug and statements that provide the mutual understanding that the medication or supply that the patient is receiving is donated and could have been stored in a non-controlled environment. The patient must also understand that the pharmacy, pharmacist, and manufacturer cannot be held liable for any issues with the donated medication that has been accepted for donation and dispensed in good faith. Patient must also understand that they are to receive this drug free of charge and that there should not be any guarantee or expectation by the pharmacy to provide a subsequent fill free of charge. The recipient also does have a right to request a copy of this form for personal records as well. The following requirements for the donation of medications were passed by law on November 27, 2022, and are still applicable to the program at the time of this recording. For the general requirements, the person that is donating the medication must be at least 18 years of age. Controlled substances are not allowed for donations to prevent abuse and diversion. For the donated prescription medications, they must have the following, where it must be contained in original sealed and tamper-evident packaging. This packaging must contain lot number and expiration date. If the lot number is not retrievable, the drug must be destroyed in the event of a recall, and then the prescription drug or medical supply must be deleted from the program database. The expiration date of this donated medication must be more than 6 months after it is donated, but there is an exception where if the drug is in high demand, then an expiration date of 6 months or less after the day of donation may be accepted and distributed. These donated medications must have no physical signs of tampering, misbranding, deterioration, or adulteration. Lastly, if the donated drug is not continually under the control of a healthcare professional, a pharmacy, or other legally authorized entity allowed to possess these prescription medications, the participating pharmacy must collect a donation form that is signed by the donor or the person's authorized representative attesting to the manufacturer's recommended proper storage of the prescription drug. There are a number of requirements for inspection according to South Dakota law, in which a pharmacist in charge designated pharmacist at the participating pharmacy must inspect the donated drug or medical supply to ensure that it is safe and suitable for dispensing. This designated pharmacist must sign the donor form. However, if the drug or medical supply is received from another participating pharmacy, then reinspection is not needed if this copy of this donor form with inspection information is received. Documentation of this inspection process and or transfer from a participating pharmacy is also required on the board's program database. There are a number of storage and destruction requirements for the donated drug and medical supplies. With these donated drugs and medical supplies, they must be stored under appropriate environmental conditions. If they were found to not be suitable for dispensing, then they must be destroyed, and documentation of their destruction is required. No prescription drug that requires storage temperature other than room temperature, as specified by the drug manufacturer, may be donated or accepted unless this drug was donated directly from the drug manufacturer or other entity authorized to possess prescription drugs. For this requirement, it's likely not of concern with many oral oncolytics that are typically stored at room temperature, but there could be some exceptions for systemic therapies that typically require refrigeration for appropriate storage. If the donated drug or medical supply is not inspected immediately after receipt, then quarantine is needed for the donated drug or medical supply. Lastly, drop boxes cannot be used for delivering or accepting medications. Instead, the donated drugs and medical supplies must be donated on the premises of a participating pharmacy. There are a number of requirements for recipients of donated drugs. One of them is that the pharmacy may charge recipient a handling fee of $25 or less to cover mailing, handling, or dispensing costs. Another requirement is that the recipient must sign an acceptance form prior to receiving the prescription drug or medical supply to attest that the individual is an eligible patient, to acknowledge that the drug or supply has been donated, and to waive the requirement for child-resistant packaging if applicable. There are a number of criteria for dispensing donated drugs and medical supplies. One of the requirements are that the drug or supply is prescribed by a healthcare professional for use in an eligible patient and dispensed by a licensed pharmacist in a participating pharmacy. The priority of individuals who may receive these donated drugs or medical supplies depends on the financial situation of the individual, in which patients with no insurance coverage or poor financial situations will typically have higher priority for these donated drugs, while any other individual will have lower priority. These donated drugs and medical supplies must also be dispensed in compliance with all applicable state and federal laws. The participating pharmacy also has to remove the original donor's identification and name of the dispensing pharmacy before dispensing these donated drugs and medical supplies. Lastly, they also need to document the dispensing on the board's program database. There weren't many changes to the drug repository program ever since 2022 legislative session. However, there were a few policy updates from September 15, 2025 that pertain to redispensing unit dose and unit issue drugs from nursing facilities, hospice programs, or assisted living facilities. One of the updates was that drugs that have been repackaged into a unit of issue package by the pharmacy may be redispensed into a unit of issue distribution system and mixed with drugs of a different lot number, as long as all lot numbers and expiration dates are placed on a unit of issue package or in an internal record. This is really just to show transparency of the different lot numbers that are used for the drug in case of a recall. The other updated policy is that the expiration date for the repackaged drug must not exceed either 1 year from the date that the drug was prepackaged or repackaged, or the manufacturer's container expiration date. And this would really depend on which variation is shorter. Ultimately, these are the three key takeaways that I want you all to get from this presentation today, in which drug repository programs are extremely valuable for reducing financial toxicities for both patients and health institutions, while also reducing medication waste. The drug repository program in South Dakota became available for statewide use in February 2024, and the donated medications and medical supply directory is now available on the South Dakota Department of Health website. Most policies from 2022 regarding the repository program also still apply at the time of this recording. Shown here are my references for this clinical pearl. I hope you all learned something from this presentation. If you have any questions regarding the contents of this video, feel free to reach out to me at cchan1@lima.health. Thank you.